what you would have to go through today from the bottom to try to get up and out of that. Compounded by the fact that your credit is probably fucked. Now imagine being somebody who started off that way. A lot of people think I am an autistic retard who grew up in a bubble where I had manservants and maidservants and was sheltered from the evils of the world. No, I grew up the fucking son of 2 goddamn cocaine addicts. It don't work the way that you think it does. I don't know where the fuck this bubble under a rock exists, but I ain't never been. I didn't grow up some rich white kid, like y'all want to assume. Most of the kids I grew up with were not white. I did not go where the rich kids go. Now, I have been to where the rich kids get sent. As a child, I was in a place called Centennial Peaks Mental Hospital. That was an actual mental hospital. That's where, I believe that's where I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome. I used to make a sound even in my sleep. I'd go, My brother thought it was so hilarious. He used to do that every time he was losing an argument. My mom had to develop one of those in her old age, too. She would shit herself when she lost an argument. And then she'd say, "See, you made me shit myself." Oh, sure. God, well, go take a bath. Horrible, horrible woman. There's a lot of people that I've called out recently. People had a choice in whether or not they came forward. They did not have a choice in whether or not I came forward. It just goes to show you can't control what another person is going to do. You guys wanted to assume I was a autistic retard. No, I'm a fucking strategist. I already knew I was fighting a losing battle before I got started because I already knew the cards that I was fucking dealing with from the beginning. Yeah, I could bluff that I got 3 aces and some 8s. Hell, I could try to bluff that I got all 4 aces, but the fact is, if somebody else is holding 2 aces, they know I'm bluffing. So, I gotta be honest and straightforward. I gotta save deception for the deceptionists, and I gotta give them equality. You think I should shut up and go to the back of the bus, but you want me to feel sorry for you because of your PTSD, because, well, I'm sorry, little missy. I'm sorry, Shea Burton, but as cruel and horrible and mean as you were to people when you were with Theo, what justifies that? Did you ever get rid of that person that you used to be? Do you ever decide that you actually wanted to be a better person, or do you still hang out with the same people that you did? Hopefully you're done selling drugs. Now, as far as I know, all you were selling is pot. I never bothered to ask what you were selling. People come up to me like I'm supposed to do something about a woman selling drugs out of a baby stroller. Well, this is also Theo's wife. Same Theo that was walking down Pearl Street with a sword and got pissed off at me. Man, you're the dumbass who was walking down the goddamn street with a fucking sword. I don't know where the hell you get off. But I always liked her, and I always thought to myself, you know, if she was away from Theo, she'd be a much better person, or at least a nicer one. And she doesn't know how to stick up for herself. She also knows how to go to her friends and family for help, and she knows how to make someone's life a living hell. She also knows how to call the cops, and she knows how to play victim. She knows how to play on the mentally ill thing and the you need meds thing, and of course, she didn't pull the you need to get a job thing. I'm surprised. And oh, poor me, I have PTSD. How dare you this and how dare you that? Go fuck yourself. Nice people, do not confuse them for good people. A used car salesman is nice. A guy who wants to get into your panties at the bar is nice. An officer who thinks he can get something free out of locking you up is nice. They'll approach you nice and talk to you nice and try to coax you into saying something improper. Or they'll insinuate at some point that you have done something that makes them feel uncomfortable, and so they can magically search your shit. No, know your fucking rights. Shea Burton only survived out there because of people like, well, this is really, really shitty for me to say, but it's true. A lot of people in Boulder, Colorado would not have survived the ordeals that they went through if it were not for my older brother, Eric. He's a fucking asshole. A lot of people have said that. A lot of people have typed that. And it's because it's true. But I'd venture to say he's probably saved more lives. Literally saved more lives than any officer in that town. Eric Christopher Schwartz has disarmed more assailants than anybody I know. I hate that he's out there on the streets subject to that violence. I hate there's people that decided to use him as a tool to get to me. See, that's what manipulators do. And contrary to popular belief, you're a manipulator too. We all manipulate. We all want things, don't we? And how do we get those things? Manipulation. You're a mechanic? Well, you're manipulating somebody's vehicle into working for a few more miles. You're an accountant? You're manipulating people into trusting you with their money, and hopefully you make a profit for them and a profit for yourself in the process. If you're an attorney, you're trying to manipulate a judge into not letting in evidence that shows that you're wrong and only letting in evidence that makes you look good. Then you run into autistic people who are like, hey, it's written a certain way for a reason and we're supposed to look at both sides. What the fuck is wrong with you? Oh, mentally ill, mentally ill, mentally ill. Mentally ill is not a diagnosis. The officers and the Bollingers pulled that mentally ill shit as predators always do. Natalie Bollinger stood zero chance in fucking hell of a decent life because of exactly and precisely that. She wanted her life to end for a reason, and it started before I ever met her. We got these web sleuth shows, want to pretend like she was a little kid and like she was about to graduate high school and had aspirations of going to college, and she was in college. She was a grown-ass motherfucking adult. These people try to make it sound like I'm some sort of a perv who drove across the country just to see some underage girl. No, a cop from Virginia did that. A police officer from Virginia did that. Drove all the way to California, killed 2 people, and abducted their 14-year-old fucking daughter. What the hell is wrong with you people? Cops are the good guys. My ass. And then magically he wasn't a cop anymore. He wasn't a real officer. They had to let him go. Are you sure about that? Same thing with the Christian community. I deal with two sides of it. The side of the ones who feel it is their need and their just desire to pass judgment upon innocent people because they heard something. They heard a rumor. And then, of course, it's the, you can't judge me, I'm shielded by the shield of the Almighty. Blah, 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 spaceman in the sky, blah, 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 tarot cards, blah, 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 spaceman in the sky, amen. Like, holy shit. Two sides to the same fucking coin. Then you got the ones who are like, oh, give it to God. Give it to God. Just give it to God. When you die, there's a place for you in heaven. Jesus didn't serve heaven, he served man and woman. He was also called Rabbi. Now, one thing is, he did spend time in the temples, but the only time that he was ever actually in a temple. At one point in time, he was on the steps of a temple. I believe it might have said he went in. Did you not know that I would be at my Father's house? Rabbi means teacher. They were instructed the same way as Muslims were. The Holy Book itself, you were taught from a young age. Indoctrination. And don't go talking shit about the Jews because of that. Every religion does it. Here in America, we got a bunch of Christians who want to not have judgment passed on them, but they want to pass judgment on others. We've got friends who want you to be a real friend when they need it. When nobody else will come through, you are their go-to. You are their last resort. And you're the guy who surprisingly actually comes through. You're the only guy who's not full of shit. But then, of course, the people who you helped out, are they going to help you out when you need it? Are they going to speak up when you need it? Are they going to be honest? Or are they going to be afraid? Or are they going to tell you that they're afraid of the police? They're afraid of the Bollingers? You're too busy. Well, I have to remind myself that your decisions are yours to make. I have to remind myself of the words, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. But then again, that is an excuse. That is an excuse. You know exactly what you're doing. Judas knew exactly what he was doing. And you know what? None of the Bible, none of the New Testament anyway, not even a tiny bit of it makes any fucking sense without the book of Judas. What happened when the famous college of cardinals first came together to even decide what's going to go into the Bible? To vote on what goes into the Bible. Well, the ones who thought the book of Judas should have been in there were crucified. Sorry. That is an outright lie. Not intentionally. I was thinking about Jesus being crucified. They were burned at the stake. Heresy and all that. There's no way in hell that with the book of Paul, there's no way between that and, well, of course, there's two other books in the Bible that basically sell out Judas as a Judas. But the book of Judas explains how Judas was the only one who Jesus felt he could truly trust. This was his best friend, his closest confidant, his best mate, and the only person who realized that this was what Jesus had to do in order to get the word out. Now, although I'm not a religious person, I like the Jesus. I like the story. Jesus is my favorite character of any book ever written. However, I don't go through the book and think to myself, oh, this is all exactly how it is. This is exactly how God made it. No, the book was inspired by the Almighty. Or rather, inspired by the idea of the Almighty. Because how many of those people ever actually met God? They couldn't even hear his voice. It would shatter them. That's to, of course, abridge it to just a short sentence. A lot of people wanted to do that. You know, I eventually did threaten Ted Bollinger, and I admitted to it. It was after my grandmother's funeral, after him and his daughter were pulling the stuff they were pulling at my grandmother's funeral. With the situation as it was presented, I had every reason to believe that he was doing something harmful to Alicia Bollinger. Turns out they were just fucking around and playing head games as per usual, same as Danica Garner, same as Rose M. Kelly. All they were interested in doing was fucking with me, lying to me, not keeping their word. How many times do you expect me to believe you when you literally never keep your word? When you will only get a hold of me when I'm on a Facebook ban, but won't get a hold of me when I'm not. You won't even look at it. It's antagonistic. The fact that it was like clockwork with both Danica Garner and Rochelle Shelley Campbell is suspect. The situation with Marcia Estrada and Penny Cooper is suspect. The situation with Penny Cooper, yeah, she outright broke the law, and she did so blatantly and repeatedly. And she did so against the wishes and the express instructions of Marcia Estrada, according to the recordings that I have with both of them. What Marcia Estrada told me versus what Penny Cooper told me were not the same. Also, with Penny Cooper supposed to be an advocate, supposed to help me with these things, same as Tamara was, but not doing so. With Nicole Peralta, she told me that that was Jen Beebe's job. Now, just like with Clearview, same building, name change. Clearview Behavioral Health in Johnstown's permanently closed down. So they sold the building to a different hospital, hired on the same fucking workers, and reopened it. And now they're having the same problems. Well, the same thing in Sidney, Nebraska. Region 1 Nebraska was supposed to cover Chapel, Sidney, and parts of Scotts Bluff. They service that whole area. Now, when I got back from Virginia, Nicole Peralta and Tamara were the team that I was working with. One of them was my caseworker, and that was Tamara. And the other one was my therapist, and her name was Nicole Peralta. When I started getting sent to the Front Range, and the cops in Chapel, Nebraska were blowing me off, and the services in Chapel, Nebraska were telling me that I needed to go to the Front Range. That's where all the services are. You're autistic. There's nothing for you out here. You're disabled. There's nothing for you out here. You need to go to the Front Range. Blah, 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 blah. Not addressing the issue. Constantly changing the subject, trying to make it about something else. Don't change the subject. Listen to the victim. This is something that every single one of these officers knows that they're not supposed to do. They're not supposed to talk over the victim. They're not supposed to sell a false narrative over it. The fact that they did so in court, after doing so on camera, made it so that they couldn't allow the cameras to be shown in court or to the public. because a lot of police officers would have gone to prison. Not jail, but prison. What I have gone through makes George Floyd look lucky. On the bright side, I'm a special kind of stupid. I knew what I was up against from the start. Before Natalie was killed, I spilled the beans in public about it all. Then she called it slander, and then she got her brains blown out. Well, that slander was still in her veins. Did I really lie about her heroin use? No, I did not. Did I really lie about having to stay with drug dealers? Well, the evidence from Brett Roloff showed that I did, in fact, have to stay with drug dealers. The evidence from Brett Roloff and his girlfriend did show, in fact, that I was staying with drug dealers. It'd have been nice to know that ahead of time. The evidence with Kayla Trujillo shows that, yes, in fact, that I did stay with a drug dealer. I was at a drug dealer's house who was going to help me. That's right, a drug dealer was going to help me to turn in Ken Wilson and Leatha Plunkett for taking advantage of my disability money, for robbing me fucking blind. I had to turn in Dawn Bird for fucking assaulting me. That's what ultimately led to me leaving. When I left Ken Wilson and Leatha Plunkett on December 26th of 2017, you know why I left? Because Dawn Wilson fucking assaulted me. I told Ken I was leaving to go find my voice. I'd already told all of my worst sins on Facebook. That's right, my worst sins that I ever committed. I posted them live on Facebook. The live post is still up, by the way. I told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And when that didn't matter, well, I went to battle with the same weapons that they were using. I just did it a lot nicer. I didn't go threatening to kill their kids like people were threatening with my friends and family. Threatening to kill their fucking kids, you pieces of shit. Threatening to kill Sarah Bacon's kids. By the way, she was an alcoholic, like I told you she was. And she did admit to it. And like with many, many, many others, Mandy Singer admitted to being a prostitute, to being sex trafficked, to being a drug addict. She admitted that the reason she didn't come forward before about the situation was because she was strung out on fucking drugs and in fucked up situations. And guess what? Despite the fact that she never came forward until way too fucking late for it to make a difference, I do believe that it can still make a difference, and she can still make a difference. But Mandy Singer needs to be kept safe. These victims need to be kept safe from law enforcement. They need to be kept safe from being retaliated against for telling the truth. Threatening to kill people's friends and family is ungodly, fucking stupid, and wrong. And anybody who's going to tell me that their children are being fucking threatened can expect me to speak up right fucking now. If you want to tell me you had to dip out because people threatened to kill you and your family, well, that's the way life goes. By the way, somebody called me from a 308 number earlier. That's a Nebraska number. And they said I gave them my number a few months ago and that their name is Rob. Somebody trolling for my number, probably to try to make sure it is my number. That's one of the things about the call yesterday with that lady who was trying to give out my phone number. Yeah, people will try to piece that shit together so they can fucking harass you. There are a lot of fucking creepy people who watch these true crime things. Like Sally Treon, or Layla Johnson, or Kara Johnson Miles, or Shannon Alvarado. Now, how many of these people, that the recordings that I have show that they were extremely loud? They were screamers and yellers. How many of my videos show that these people were on drugs, were selling drugs, were doing drugs? My finances made it so that I had to ask for help to move from one place to another, and cops were not going to do anything to investigate any crimes against me, but they were willing to press false charges against me and then give me a bus ticket out of the state. Now, those false charges they press on you, they don't tell you about that. Then you go back and you're like, are you serious? I got a fucking warrant here. It would have been nice if you'd have told me. A lot of people are angry because I do what I do publicly. I'd had enough of people threatening to kill me and my family and my friends. I'd had to deal with that for over a year before Natalie was killed, and for it to have gotten as completely fucking insane and out of hand as it got, well, that's just horrible. The recordings with my sister showing that she was threatened, harassed, and intimidated. Wanted to blame me for people fucking creeping on her. Like, shit, Tara, I told you they were gonna. Why do you think I asked you if some place safe to go? My grandma's funeral, you know what? Nobody took it seriously except my little sister. And my family did everything they could to change the subject. My little sister was going to try to help me a little clandestine so that nobody would know. But they weren't having that either. They wanted to eat up all of her time and all of my time by making me and Tara, that's my little sister, run all of the mundane goddamn tasks that nobody else wanted to do. I finished burying my grandma because everybody else fucking left. Including the machine that was rented so that they could fill in the hole. There wasn't a lot left. I made sure the sod was placed properly. That's Graham Milborn. He's in one of the videos on my channel. He's the fucking moron that when Ted Bollinger and his daughter Alicia were fucking with me on YouTube, and Ted Bollinger thought he was slick by erasing his messages as soon as I'd reply to them. He'd erase his message. Thought he'd get away with that, except that my YouTube let me know in the notifications, and I was able to take screenshots of that. God bless technology, right? And thank goodness for Laura Nelson teaching me how to do that with my phone so that I could collect evidence like that. This was non-stop fucking head games and non-stop making sure that I couldn't go to court, that I couldn't face my accusers, that I couldn't show evidence, that I didn't have a safe place, that I was cut off from my friends and family, that I was cut off from a place where I could sit down in peace and fucking quiet and do what I needed to do to defend myself and to protect myself. All of the decisions that I made and the things that I lost were based on promises from people I had to trust because I needed the help and I could not afford to rent two places, especially with Ken Wilson and Letha Plunkett raising the rent all the fucking time. That shit's not cheap. And paying rent in two places ain't cheap, even if one of them's low income. For the quote-unquote friends that I was staying with to be ripping me off that often and that frequently And for people like Miss Peaches wanting me to bring cigarettes or weed or something if I go over to her house. And of course, it's legal in Colorado. Both cigarettes and weed, as long as you're at least 21 years of age. Miss Peaches being old enough to buy her own alcohol and buy her own cigarettes, well, that pretty much tells you she's old enough. I've known Miss Peaches since she was 15 years old. When I was, I want to say 23, she was out there on the streets. She was still living with her mom, but she was playing street urchin, doing the same thing that Natalie Bollinger was doing. Trolling for love in the wrong places and looking for older men. Men like Joshua Hebert. Convicted felon, got out of prison and decided he was going to have sex with him, a whole bunch of underage people, and he was going to get him a rich sugar mama. That poor lady, she had an apartment. Well, she owned an apartment complex in Boulder, which is, you got to have a lot of money, but she was also a hoarder and a pack rat, and she inherited it because her husband died, and Joshua Hebert convinced her into spending all of her money on him. You know, he's young by comparison with what a woman who looked like her and was her age could actually get reasonably if she didn't have money. And the conditions that she lived in were nasty. But she had the money that she could afford to live however she wanted. If she wanted to have a $4,000 dress laying in the middle of her floor, she could afford to do that. Not by the time Hebert was done with her. When Miss Peaches was first going to help me with this situation, it was still 2016. But they didn't have any food. Christmas was coming up. They didn't have money for gifts. They didn't have money for presents. Everybody was playing Magic the Gathering. They wanted me to play Magic the Gathering with them. They wished that they had this card and that card, but they needed food, they needed food, they needed food. So while Joshua Hebert went out there and panhandled around Christmas time so he could get enough money for him to get up and out, he was going to start him a crystal business, digging rocks. But he was spending all of his money doing the same things Ken Wilson and Leatha Plunkett did. It's called going to venues. You find out where the tripping kids are going to a concert, whether it be ICP or fucking a heavy metal band, or especially, you know, a lot of hippie bands that come in whenever the Spaghetti Incident or some knockoff band like that comes through. These guys go to those venues. They sell pills, they sell mushrooms, they sell whatever they can get their hands on to whoever the hell wants it. And all they do is sit in the parking lot. Basically like a tailgate party. Leatha Plunkett was making hats that she sells her drugs in. You could buy one of her hats, and it was a stash hat with nothing in it. And she'd sell it to you for one price, and then she'd have the special hats that had the drugs in them. Now, of course, I've got recordings with multiple people, including Tabitha Michelle Cook, that speak about the drugs. About how Leatha Plunkett had those drugs wrapped up in her son Gabriel's Christmas presents, and how he had gotten into a whole handful of those pills. Now, who is it that told me about Gabriel, her son who's autistic? Who is it that was selling those drugs at the time? Well, according to her ex-husband, Gabriel's father, they had ecstasy pills and some mushrooms, and their son got into both of them. It's negligence on both their parts. And of course, as young as he was, that would have lifelong consequences. Feeding ecstasy to a developing mind like that, or mushrooms, because you're so fucked up you're not paying attention. Now, these people are recorded, and there's the screenshots. There's a lot of people that Thought, well, if I destroy the screenshots, I get away with it. Sean won't be able to prove shit. Well, now there's a big open space on our Facebook that says message deleted. And there's also the fact that before I called you out, I had collected the evidence first. I collected it before I called you out. So what you did was destroy evidence knowingly, willingly, and intentionally. Goddamn velociraptors. Just kidding, it was a belch. Alright, I gotta piss like a fucking racehorse, so I'm gonna end this goddamn video. Good to be rid of you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper, and your sister's keeper as well. No victim left behind. Not even if they're disabled, not even if they're homeless, not even if they're male, not even if they're white.